What exactly is public sector policy, governance, and administration? That is the first thing that we need to understand. The public sector policy, governance, and administration. Policy, governance, and administration. This is our unit. I want to give a brief reason why this unit is very important for anyone who is taking CS classes. The first important thing, if you assess the CS intermediate level, you will see that in each and every unit that you are taking at the intermediate level, there is something specific that is very important for a certified secretary. If you go through your, when you'll be discussing meetings, compliance, and administration, you will be guided. You will be taught that, okay, as a certified secretary, being the main person who will be assisting the chairperson to conduct meetings in a company, you need to understand, one, what are some of the essentials of a company meeting? Two, what are some of the requirements that you need to have as a certified secretary so that you can conduct your duties? Three, in relation to meetings in a company, you need also to understand what are some of the documents that you need to prepare as a certified secretary. When you go to the financial markets, we discussed in our yesterday's class, and I told you, we are now discussing investments. Why? Because currently, most of the companies, they are listing their shares. They are listing their shares, meaning they are inviting the members of the public to purchase their shares. So as a certified secretary, being the principal legal advisor of the company, you need to understand such things. You also go to company law, that is adherence to the laws and regulations that govern a company. You also discuss the research and analysis. You need to know the important concepts concerning research as a certified secretary. Why? Because you are the one who will be ensuring that this company adheres to the laws and regulations. How will you know that? By researching and being updated on what is happening in the CS profession. For example, if somebody decides today to use, let's use a good example, like the financial markets. If you check, there are some changes that are happening in the Capital Markets Act. So you cannot in any way advise your client using the Capital Markets Act 2015 without checking any changes that are happening in the Capital Markets Act. You cannot use only the anti-money laundering 2009 that people commonly refer to. You have to tell them, okay, as a certified secretary, being the principal legal advisor, I need to tell you there are some changes. There were some amendments. Let us assess the 2022 Amendment Bill or the Amendment Act of the money laundering, Now, when you come to the public sector, policy, governance, and administration, we are dealing with the civil servants. Okay, so anytime you are sitting in a public sector policy and governance paper, the first important thing that you need to remember, we are dealing with the public, the members of the public, so the society. As a certified secretary, you need to tell us, if today you are the company secretary, you remember that there are these reforms that I see everyone pushing, that, okay, let it be mandatory that counties must have a county secretary, although it is there. Let us have that companies must have a certified secretary. I have seen most of you suggesting that we need to ensure that in each and every company, let us have a certified secretary. So now here in the public sector policy and governance, we shall be discussing a certified secretary who is in the public sector, who is in the public service. Okay, so we will be asking ourselves, one, what is the relationship between the public service and the private sector? Two, we shall also ask ourselves, what is the governance structure of our country? Because now we are dealing with the society. the members of the public. That is what we will be discussing in this unit. So anytime you will be in that exam, you know, we always use that mentality of we want to start from the end coming backwards. So anytime you will be reading this public sector policy and governance, we want to ensure that everyone will be tilted or everyone will be thinking that we are now in the public service. I want to think when we will be asking ourselves a simple question like, identify what are some of the challenges that may face the implementation of a public policy. You will now be saying, okay, then I am a certified secretary in a government institution. What are some of the challenges? What are some of the issues that are likely to arise as we implement a certain action? Please do not think when you're answering these public sector questions in a private manner. Don't think the way you can think when you're in your own organization. No, tell us. One, you will tell us there will be some different interests. You will have some stakeholder interests that are very different. So one of the issues that will be affecting your implementation will be accommodating the interest of the different stakeholders. And therefore, we will be discussing in this unit, which are the different stakeholders that are very important when you are coming up with a public policy. Okay, so quickly, let us now, in our today's class, list the topics that we'll be covering, and then we can introduce the first topic, and you will see that as we'll be continuing the syllabus, you will see that we'll be discussing the public sector. Okay, so the first topic will be what we call the administrative theory. So let us just list them quickly for the purposes of that person who wants to convince themselves that did you complete the syllabus? Yes, we did, by assessing the units or the topics that we have done. So the first one, administrative theory. So here we will be introducing the concept of what exactly is the meaning of public administration. I have told you, you have to think. And when you be reading this public sector, it is matters concerning the society. We are now not discussing the private organizations. We are discussing the governance of public institutions. So we will be discussing the administration or the administrative theory. Now, let me tell you where we get this concept of administrative theory. We will also be discussing it here. But for those of us who have taken the management principles and practice or the principles of management, we have a certain topic known as the evolution of management. Under the evolution of management, in the classical era, we have one of the theories known as the administrative theory. It was developed by Henry Fayol. So Henry Fayol developed a theory known as the administrative theory. Its main importance was, or its main assertion was, that for us to improve the structures of our organizations, we need to ensure, one, we adhere to what we call the 14 principles of administration. So that is the first thing. We adhere to the 14 principles of administration. And two, let us improve the whole system of an organization. Let us work on the structures that we put in place in an organization. That is what Henry Fayol told us under the principles of management. And therefore, that theory is the one that we commonly use in the public sector. That what are the 14 principles of administration? The principle of division of labor and specialization. That is why we will be asking you, when we will be hiring, what is your skill? Two, the principle of fair remuneration. Let us ensure that we can pay you very well. Or what is the required standards. That is why you have the minimum wages. The principle of centralization and decentralization of authority. Okay, so there are some decisions that must be made by one central person, and there are some decisions that have been decentralized. Okay, we also have the principle of subordination of the personal interest. So anytime you are working in our organization, you need to ensure that you promote the organizational interest over your personal interest. So that is why we got this concept of the administrative theory that gives us the foundation of this public sector. Anytime we're in the public service, we must be governed by the principles of Henry Fayol. And that is what we'll be discussing here. That is why we'll get the concept of judicial review. That is why we will get what are some of the changes that need to be there in the public administration. After that, we will go to the governance structure. We will go to the governance structure. So the governance structure, we will be discussing the two main levels of government in the December 2024 Public Sector Policy and Governance. Question 1, the examiner asked, what is the relations between the national government and the county government? So we will be seeing that answer. Where do we get those answers? Where do we get those answers? Yes, it is a must. Demo, it's a must. We will give you time to go and play. That is a must. That is a must. So where do we get those answers? Please, when we be going through this topic, I will be telling you we have to go through the Constitution of Kenya 2010, because if you are asked any question like, what are the objectives of devolution? Is that an application question? No, that question is asking the principles that are found in the Constitution of Kenya. And we will also be using the County Government Act 2012. The County Government Act 2012. These are the two main documents that will help us to answer all questions. So any question you'll be seeing, what are some of the functions of the county government? What are the functions of the governor? What are some of the relations, or what are some of the challenges facing the county assemblies? What are some of the expected relationships between the national government and the county government? We expect to find them in these two statics, the governance structures. That topic, we will be discussing policy analysis. So the models of public policy. Models of public policy. When you talk of the models of public policy, it is our intention that the first thing that somebody learns in that topic will be, what is the meaning of a public policy? What is the meaning of a public policy? We shall be saying that a public policy refers to the action that a government takes in order to solve the issues that the society is facing, or the challenges that the society is facing. Is my screen doing bad things? You know, I can see it. Is my screen doing bad things on your end? Confirm? Is my screen doing bad things? I can see it here. So when you talk of the public policy, it is the action that the government takes to solve the issues that are affecting the citizens. We will be asking ourselves, what are the different models of these actions that the government is taking to solve the issues affecting the citizens, which we only say it is the backbone of this public sector governance and policy. So when we'll be discussing from this topic 3, in the next 2 topics, we will still be insisting on this concept of public policy. So the next topic will be, what are some of the policy? We will be discussing the public policy and national development. The public policy and national development. What do you mean by public policy and national development? So if we have known what is the meaning of public policy, that it is the action that the government takes to solve the issues that are affecting the citizens, now we will be asking ourselves, what is the impact of the public policy on the national development? That is what the examiner asked in the recent sitting. The examiner asked in the recent sitting, can you tell us what are some of the situations, question 1A, what are some of the situations where the government is involved? What are some of the situations where the government is involved? Or what are some of the activities or economic activities where the government is involved in a country? We will be asking ourselves the impacts of a public policy on the national development. What are some of the situations? Okay. Then after that, public policy analysis. So what is the meaning of public policy analysis? We will be saying, actually, for the better understanding, it is easier for somebody to start learning this one before all this. Why? Because when you talk of a public policy analysis, it means before we choose that this is the action that we need to take so that we can solve a certain issue affecting the citizens, we need to undertake what we call a policy analysis. I am repeating. When you talk of the public policy analysis, it comes first before you choose the policy that you need to take to solve the issues affecting the citizens. Most of us confuse. We don't want to confuse. We are saying public policy analysis, it is the first step. Before we decide that today we are facing the issue of unemployment. So the action that we as the government we are taking to solve that issue, we are undertaking the housing program. So we will have sat as the advisors of the government and we'll be saying, we can either decide the housing program. So what is the impact of that public policy on the national development? Two, we can also tell ourselves, okay, no, we need to insist on education. We need to insist on education. Okay. So what about education? We are just saying that we want to have this tertiary education, tertiary skills. We have to put them in our every constituency so that everyone will have a skill and that will create employment. So that is what we call the public policy analysis. And from that, through the impact that these different policies will have, we will choose the best that can solve the issue. So that is what we call the public policy analysis. We are trying to see which is the best policy that can help us to solve the issues affecting the citizens. After that, citizen participation and development planning. Citizen participation and development planning. Where do we get this concept? We get it from the Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya. The citizen participation and development planning, we get it from Article 10 of the Constitution of Kenya. Why? Because the Article 10, it tells us that one of the national values and principles is public participation. And therefore, we will be asking ourselves, what are the different ways we can involve the members of the public in the running of our country? Okay. And that is what the examiner was asking in the December 2024. What are some of the techniques that you need to have so that you can effectively involve the members of the public in their development or in the development of a country? So we will be asking ourselves here, the citizen participation. Okay, the citizen participation. Topic 7, public sector governance. Public sector governance. So when you talk of the public sector governance, any person who is taking corporate governance and ethics, this one will be a repetition. Why? We will be discussing what we call the governance models. What are the different approaches that we can use in our organization to achieve the objectives? Two, we will be discussing what we call the ethical principles of a professional. The ethical principles of a professional. When we discuss these ethical principles of a professional, we will carry that concept up to the advanced level. When you'll be taking the governance and compliance audit, we shall be repeating a whole topic, ethical principles of a profession, that as a professional, as a certified secretary, ensure you have the confidentiality, the skills, competence, and due care. You have the independence, okay, professionalism. So that is what we'll be discussing here, the ethical principles. And that is what we'll be told. Identify the ethical challenges. Identify ways of minimizing identify ways of minimizing unethical behavior in our institutions. Identify or outline or highlight ways of introducing ethical behavior in our public institutions. This one, the public sector governance. What is governance? The systems and structures through which an organization is directed and controlled. So what are some of the ways of introducing ethics in our systems in the public sector? That is what we'll be discussing there. A very common concept will be, what is value-based leadership? If you go through your past papers, the question on value-based leadership is very common. Value-based leadership. Topic 8, resource stewardship. Topic 8, we have resource stewardship. So when you talk of the resource stewardship, it means what are the different ways we mobilize resources in our institutions? Ways of mobilizing resources in our institutions. And when we talk of mobilizing resources, we are just saying, what are the different ways we can get the finances of our companies? That is what we'll be discussing here. So here we will be focusing on the Public Finance Management Act 2012. It is a must. Why? Because here you will be asked, identify 5 functions of the Senate Budget Committee in your country. You cannot guess that question. You have to go back to the Public Finance Management Act 2012. Identify 5 principles of public finance and taxation in your country. Where do you get them? First, in the Constitution of Kenya, Article 234, or you come back to the Public Finance Management Act 2012. Identify or outline 5 institutions involved in the public finance in your country. The Auditor General, the Controller of Budgets, the Senate, the National Assembly, etc. The Central Bank of Kenya. Where do you get those answers? The Public Finance Management Act 2012. So we will be focusing on that Public Finance Management Act 2012 to answer the questions on matters concerning resource mobilization. Then the last topic will be management of public enterprises. The last topic, management of public enterprises. Management of public enterprises, which we will commonly say in our classes, we will be saying these public enterprises, they are known as the government-owned institutions. Okay? The government-owned institutions, the public enterprises. Common examination question, outline 5 unique features of the public enterprises. 1, 50% of the shares are owned by the government. 2, you can tell us that it is subject to public accountability. There is some subsidies that are given to these institutions in case of losses by the government, etc. So we will be discussing that. And through this, now we will have this concept, the Adani concept, that we have seen, we are struggling as the public enterprises. And therefore, what is the next thing? We need to accommodate the private people. So we will now introduce the concept, the Public-Private Partnership 2021. We shall be using it. In the December 2024, the examiner asked, can you identify the models of the public-private partnership? Because these public enterprises, they are failing. So the next strategy that we are using is the public-private partnerships. Okay, so that is what we will be discussing. So what are the advantages of the public enterprises, the public-private partnerships, and also what are some of the challenges that we may face because of these public enterprises? So that is what we'll be having, and then after that we will be discussing the intensive blocks revision for the unit public sector policy and governance. So the first topic being administrative theory. I want to give a break because of those of us who are going to pray, so that after the break we start immediately the first topic, administrative theory. I want us to have some few minutes so that those of us who are going to pray, they can go and pray. So now we want to introduce the first topic, administrative theory. As we have said, administrative theory, it is on matters concerning the members of the public. So I want us to start by saying, we want to start by discussing what is the meaning of public administration. The meaning of public administration. The meaning of public administration. And we can say that public administration refers to a system of rules and regulations refers to a system of rules and regulations. Refers to system of rules and regulations that prevail over certain jurisdiction to manage the execution of a public policy. To manage the execution of a public policy. That is the meaning of public administration. Is that the only meaning that you can give? No, that is not the only meaning. The most important thing that you need to understand when you see the word public administration, this one. So what is administration? A system. When you see the word administration, it is basically a system of laws and regulations. Okay, administration, a system of laws and regulations, very well. But when we talk of public, we are dealing with matters concerning the society. And therefore, we are asking ourselves a question. What are some of the rules and regulations that will be implemented by a certain government in order to solve the issues affecting its citizens? That is a public policy. That is what topic 3 will be telling us. That a public policy, it is the action that is taken by a government. So this action is regulated by some certain rules and regulations. Now, let us understand what we call the nature of public administration. Nature of public administration. So please, at the back of your mind today, if somebody asks you, what have you learned in public sector? Please start by telling them, okay, the first important thing that I have understood, we will be dealing with matters concerning the public, the members of the public. And how do we deal with the members of the public? People that are dealing or that people are in the government institutions. Anything that is dealing with the government institutions. That is the first thing that we have seen, and we have been taught today. The next thing you will tell them, but we have been told that these matters concerning the members of the public, we have something we call a public policy. So what is this public policy? As a certified secretary, I need to know that there is an action that the government may take so that it can solve the issues that are affecting the citizens. So that is what we'll be discussing this year. When we talk of the nature of public administration, we want to say that we are understanding how can we explain this concept known as public administration. We always say that there are two main views. There are two main views that explain this concept of public administration. This system of rules and regulations that will manage the execution of a public policy can easily be manifested in two ways. Actually, that is the best word. The nature of public administration, it is the way we can manifest or explain this concept of public administration. So what are the two main views? One, we call it the integral view. The integral view. The integral view. So what exactly is the integral view, or what does it tell us? It says that public administration is a sum total. It's a sum total of all activities. It's a sum total of all activities that are undertaken. All activities that are undertaken in pursuit for the fulfillment of a public policy. Please, you have to convince the villagers here when we meet them. You have to tell them that we know what is a public policy. So the moment we are repeating this concept known as a public policy, it is an action that is being taken by the government to solve the issues. So the first concept, or the first way we can explain this concept of public administration is through the integral view, that we are bringing together different activities. For example, one, the public policy development. So you will find somebody telling you, can you tell us what is the process of developing a public policy? A sum total of all activities that are undertaken for the fulfillment of a public policy. What were the steps that were taken to come up with the public policy? After understanding the steps that were taken, you need to tell us, how did we implement that policy? After implementing, how did we evaluate this policy? How did we analyze? So public administration, it consists of all those activities that are taken so that we can fulfill a public policy. That is the first view. The second view, it is what we call the managerial view. The managerial view. The managerial view that gives us this heading, the administrative theory. So what is the managerial view? We can say it states that persons who are engaged in performance of managerial functions, it states that persons that are involved in the performance of managerial functions, constitute administration. What exactly have we said here? We are saying that public administration is a managerial function. Public administration is a managerial function. What is management? Principles and practice of management tells us that management refers to the art of getting things done. Management is the art of getting things done through some specific functions. Okay? The art of getting things done through some specific functions. Which are those functions? One, planning. So public administration entails, through the managerial function, there is planning. Two, there is organizing. So what is planning? Determining ahead of time in the present what will happen in the future. So that is the first one, planning. In the budget 2024-2025, we will be doing this and this and this to solve the issues affecting the citizens. Planning. Two, organizing. What is organizing? Work arrangement. We are dividing. We are coming up with a work arrangement. Managerial function. Three, staffing. After we have organized, we need to have the right number of employees in our public service so that we can achieve the solving of the public policy. Okay. Four, after organizing and staffing, we need also to direct them. What is directing? We are inspiring. We are instructing the members to behave in a particular manner so that they can achieve the objective. The fifth one, we talk of controlling. Controlling means we want to see to what extent have we achieved the implementation of a public policy. So public administration is manifested in two ways. One, through the integral view, by saying that we are bringing together different activities. They work together so that they can execute a public policy, or we are assessing or we are explaining this concept of public administration through the managerial view. So how do we explain the concept of managerial view? Through the implementation or through the carrying out of the 5 main functions of management. Okay then. So we have understood the concept of public administration. From that, let us ask ourselves some questions that have been tested in our previous examinations. One, outline the similarities between public administration and private administration. Question, outline the similarities between public administration and private administration. The similarities between public administration and private administration. That is the first question that we need to ask ourselves. We really hope that no one is suffering and everyone is understanding what we are doing now. We are explaining this concept that there's a system of rules and regulations over a certain jurisdiction that are helping in the execution of a public policy. So for the public administration, it is dealing with matters public policy. For the private administration, it is you and I, or you and other persons. You have formed your own company. So you are having your own rules and regulations. So for you, if you are to talk about the private administration, it is more of, I have a private entity and I am managing my company using some certain rules and regulations so that I can achieve my own objective. Sawa. So what are some of the similarities between public and private? You will find it as a 5 marks question in your past papers. So let us answer this 5 marks question. 1, both public administration and private administration serve the same citizens. Both serve the same people. They serve the same people, e.g. the citizens. Somebody is suffering. We are saying, we want to understand there are 2 main types of administrations. The first one, in our unit public sector, we will be talking of this public administration. But in your syllabus, you'll find the syllabus is saying, can you tell us the relationships between, so this subtopic that we are discussing currently is, tell us the relationship between public administration and other disciplines. That is what is in the syllabus. What is the relationship between public administration and other disciplines? The most common disciplines that are very important as we study this public sector is 1, the relationship between public administration and private administration. For the public administration, we have insisted. So what is private administration? We are just saying that it is a system of rules and regulations that is developed by the people or by a group of persons to regulate their own affairs. So hii ni personal, private administration. So what is the relationship between public administration and private administration? How will the examiner test that aspect of the relationship between public administration and different disciplines? 1, you'll be told, can you tell us the similarities between public administration? So we are saying the first one, they serve the same people. Who are the same people? The citizens. Kwa sababu, hata ukiwa na kampuni, utakuwa serve the society. Hata wale wako kwa the government, they are still serving the society. So we are saying both of them, they serve the same people. The other one, they employ similar accounting standards. Both employ similar accounting standards. They both employ similar accounting standards. How? If today we are paying our employees, we will ensure there is payment of payee, there is payment of this and that. Okay? We have to adjust. We have to adjust any changes that have happened in the financial accounting standards. So we are saying both of them, they apply both in the public sector and in the private administration. They are applying the same accounting standards. The other one, you can say they both have organizational hierarchy. Both have organizational hierarchy. Both have organizational hierarchy. What is the organizational hierarchy? The chain of command. They have a chain of command. Both in the private administration, you will find that there is a senior manager in a private company. There is also the subordinates, the head of department, etc. Similarly, even when you go to the public administration, you will find, my camera is doing some bad things. I asked a question, no one answered, but I can see it. Confirm if I can see what I'm seeing here. But both have organizational hierarchy. So both on the public administration and the private administration, they both are focused in improving the service to the people. both focused in improving the service to the people. Both are focused on improving services to the people. Services to the people. When we will be discussing, identify the reasons or the advantages of public administration, we shall be saying that one of the advantages or reasons why we have public administration is to ensure efficient delivery of services to the members of the public or to the citizens. That is why the government has the health services. Okay? The most important services, they are given by the government. So that is what they say. They are both focused on improving the services to the people. For the public administration, yes. That is why we are trying to solve the issues affecting the citizens. For the private administration, an entrepreneur will be solving what are the issues that are affecting the citizens. That is why we are saying that both are focused on improving the services to the people. Okay. The fifth one, you can say that both perform similar managerial activities. They both perform similar managerial activities. They both perform similar managerial activities. I have given the concept of managerial activities. If you're in the public service, you need to conduct the planning through the budgeting. The organizing, you need to determine the work arrangement. We are doing this and that. We are dividing this work and that. If you go to the private sector, the same things. You will have to plan. We as a private PIP college, this is our plan for the year, this and that. So that is what you're saying. They are performing similar managerial activities. Okay. You can also add the last one. They both complement each other. They both complement each other. Both complement each other. Okay then. So those are some of the complementing means they are supporting each other. They will be, that is why we will be discussing when we'll be going through the management of public enterprises, we will talk of public-private models, the public-private models. So they are complementing each other. They are offering quality services to the citizens. That is why you have the health insurance, the shower, and you also have your private one. Okay? They are complementing each other. Their main aim is to provide efficient services to the members of the public. So that is the similarities between public administration and private administration. The other discipline or the relationship that we need to answer is distinguish between public administration and private administration, 10 marks. Distinguish between public administration and private administration, 10 marks. Distinguish between public administration and private administration, 10 marks. So let us draw a table. So it's a common question, distinguish. We will be going through the past papers after each and every topic. We shall see those questions. Distinguish between public administration and private administration. So let us draw a tables, quick reference. So it's commonly a 10 marks question. So public administration here. Private administration. So we need to get at least 5 so that we can get our 10 marks. 1, for the public administration, obviously it is created by the government. I hope it is making sense now. When you talk of it's created by the government, because the government is the one that is formulating the public policy. So it is created by the government. For the private administration, it is owned or created by private persons or private individuals. Owned or created by private individuals. Yes, in your own company, you have your own rules and regulations that you are using to solve your issues internally. The other one, this one is service-oriented. For public administration, it is service-oriented. We as the members of, or the government institutions or the public enterprises, they are focused on serving the people, okay? Service-oriented. What about for private administration? If you own a private company, what is your main aim? Profit maximization. And be focused on profit maximization. It's mainly focused on profit maximization. The other one? For the public administration, it is funded by the taxes. It's funded by taxes collected by government. Is that true? Yes. That is why people are saying, if you're in the public service and you don't want to be criticized, can you leave? Because we are the one who are paying you. Have you heard people saying those words? Yes, because in the public sector, you are funded by the taxes collected by the government. What about for the private administration? If you decide that you want to go back in your private company, then it is funded by the investor's capital or your own capital. That is the word. Funded by investors' capital. And when you talk of the investors' capital, it's basically the private persons. The Constitution sets out its formation. Here, the Constitution sets out the formation. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by this? When we'll be discussing topic 2, governance structure, we will be citing the Constitution. That is why we have said, when we go to the governance structure, what is the management or what is the governance structure of the national government? There are 3 main arms of government. Where do we get that concept? From the Constitution. Okay. What are the functions of the judiciary? We go to the Constitution. What are the functions of the executive? The Constitution. So mostly the Constitution or the document that guides the operations of public administration is the Constitution. What about for the private administration? These private entities, they are subject to the Companies Act. Subject to the company law or the Companies Act. Is that true? Yes. Why? If today you have your own company, you will have the Articles of Association, the Memorandum of Association, etc. That one is found in the Companies Act. You are not governed by the Constitution per se. You are governed by the Companies Act. That is what we are saying there. So the private administration, it is mostly subject. These rules and regulations that you'll develop so that you can achieve your own objectives as a private company, they are coming from this Companies Act. But for the public administration, the rules and regulations to execute a public policy must be in the Constitution. That is what we are, the people are saying currently. If you listen to them, if you listen to this thing that we are saying, Crown, they're saying, can you work within the Constitution? Yeah. So as a public administration, work within this Constitution because it is the one that is setting out the rules and regulations that you need to have so that you can execute a public policy. But we cannot come to a private entity and you want you to follow the Constitution. We will be telling you what is the Companies Act saying. You need to have a certain number of employees. Your article of association is saying before you dismiss an employee, this is the procedure. Have you followed? Where do you get this concept? The Companies Act. The other one? For the public administration, it is controlled by the legislature. It is controlled by the legislature and judiciary. Okay, if somebody is asking themselves, what is the meaning of that point? Let us explain to them. What we mean by it is controlled by the legislature and judiciary, we are just saying that this concept of public sector, it falls under the arm known as the executive. The public service, it is mostly under the executive. And therefore, who will be checking on the powers of the executive? That is what we are saying. They are controlled or they are checked over by the legislature and the judiciary. So that when we will be discussing the second topic, we will be asking ourselves, examine the principles of the doctrine of separation of power. So the concept of the doctrine of separation of power, we get it here. It is controlled. It is limiting, or there's some separation of power. There. The other one, we can say, for this one, it is controlled by the board of directors. Controlled by the board of directors. Controlled by the board of directors. I hope that one is direct. No one will be surviving. Okay then, from that, let us now ask ourselves, the other discipline. So the first important discipline that we have discussed is the public and private administration. What is the relationship? You can easily be asked the similarities or the differences. The other one is public administration and politics. Public administration and politics. We need to understand what is the relationship between public administration and politics. And I want to tell you, let us imagine you in an exam and you have forgotten what we will be saying here. The most important thing, just substitute the word politics with politicians and ask yourself, what is the distinction between public administration and politicians? Okay. What is the relationship between public administration and politicians? That's all. So the first question is, summarize the differences between public administration and politics. Summarize the differences between public administration and politics. Public administration and politics. 10 marks. What is the difference between persons in the civil service and the politicians? That is what we are being asked here. What is the distinction between persons that are serving in the civil service and the politicians? Tell us, what is the distinction? Okay, so let us still draw a table. The first one, we have said this one, they are the civil servants. Now, please, tafadhali, hata ukiwa kwa exam, you have to substitute these things. Please do not be that person who is underlining. In an exam, somebody is underlining. They are not understanding, underline once more. The easier way of answering these questions, you have to substitute the words. What are you getting from that question? Summarize the differences between public administration and politics. So for the public administration, we have said it is dealing mostly with the civil service, the persons in the public sector, the persons in the government institutions, or the public enterprises. They are the civil servants. What about for the politics? It is the politicians. So what is the distinction? One, for the civil servants, they are mainly focused on policy implementation. So this one's their politician. Okay. We are not having any graduate there, but we are now answering so that it can be easier. So for the public administration, it deals with policy implementation. It deals with policy implementation. So what about for the politicians? They deal with policy formulation. Have you seen the discussion? The X platform, people are saying, do you know what is the work of an MP? The work of an MP is not CDF. The work of an MP is coming up with the laws. It is true, that one. Politicians, they deal with policy formulation. They are coming up with the laws that need to be taken so that it can solve the issues affecting the citizens. So after they come up with the laws and regulations, the civil service or the executive is the one that deals with the implementation. Say, the office tenure. The office tenure of public administration or the office tenure of the public servants is permanent. We are 100% sure that everyone here has been given that advice. Please try your level best to join the government. Why? You are assured of your work. This one. The office tenure of the civil servants is permanent. What about for the politicians? It is temporary as they change. The office tenure is temporary. Why? As it changes after every 5 years. After conducting the election. Okay, so it is true, there's a distinction between public administration and politics. Another one. Here, the activities taken in public administration are repetitive. What do you mean by the activities taken in public administration are repetitive? It means if we, let us use, if our department deals with collection and what do you call this thing? Issuance of these national identity cards. So anytime I'm taken to that department in this public sector, my main work will be put your Pigwa's signature, no, take the thumb, after the thumb, have this clearance certificate, etc. So you can easily know the activities that will happen tomorrow, okay? So for public administration, activities taken are repetitive. If you're in a certain department in the public service, and I've given you a good example, what you saw the person that was collecting the this ID when you are taking it at the age of 18, if you visit them today and they are still in that office, that is the same thing that is happening. And sure you have the thumb and those things. So we are saying the activities that are in the service servants or the public administration, they are mostly repetitive. But what happens in the politics? They deal with the current issues. They mostly deal with the current issues. They take action on the current issues. That is why somebody will tell us, I am coming with a bill that because of these strikes and these demonstrations, I need to ensure that now people will not be demonstrating. Politicians taking action on the current issues. The other one. For the public administration, their main purpose is to serve every member of the society. Purpose is to serve. Main purpose is to serve members of the society. Every member of the society. The civil service is mostly focused on serving the entire. That is why we have every institution. You can take the ID. If you come from the village like me, but you can take your ID here within town. Okay? Yes, very much okay, Eunice. Even that one is easier. When you draw a table, it is easier. You cannot confuse. The worst thing, when we are marking these papers, you will find that somebody is giving us a point here. Actions taken are repetitive. Na kwa sababu amekram pia yeye anajibu hiyo ingine kwa kichwa, hajibu. So the action taken by the public administration is repetitive, but they forget while for the politics, this is what happens. They forget, and then they go to the next point. But when you draw this table, it is easier to say that this side you have written something, but on the other side you have not written. So it is very easy, Eunice, for you to answer that way. So we are saying their main purpose is to serve members of the society. What about for the politics? The main purpose is to fulfill the citizens' interest. Main purpose is to fulfill. Main purpose is to fulfill citizens' interests so that they can get their support. Is that true? Everyone must say yes. Why? Yes, for the civil service, we want to deliver huduma kwa wote. For the politics, no. We want to come, now everyone is saying there's some abductions and everything. They are trying to get support. That person who is against the government, they are now getting the support. That is what you're saying. Their main purpose is to fulfill the citizens' interest. What is happening there? They get their support so that they can be elected. The last thing, they consist of the largest and dominant force in the country. Consist of the largest force and dominance in the country. Okay. What about for these ones? They consist of representatives. Consist of representatives. Okay. Consist of the representatives from representatives of the members of the society. So those are some of the distinctions. You can add as many as possible. Assignment question. Assignment question. Highlight the similarities between public administration. Highlight the similarities between public administration and politics. Convince yourself that you can answer a 4-marks question. This is a 4-marks question, public administration and politics. If you don't get an answer, when we'll be discussing blocks, remind me to give you the answers. Highlight the similarities between public administration and politics. Highlight. Now, we have seen what we call the relationship between public administration and the different, the public administration and the different disciplines. Mostly the common disciplines is private administration and the politics. The other important thing that we now need to discuss is what we call the principles of public administration. Principles of public administration. The principles of public administration. Subtopic. This concept known as the principles of public administration. What is a principle? Principles of public administration. If you go through your papers, the examiner can ask you the principles of public administration. It can also be known as the pillars. Do you know what is a principle? A guideline. What is a guideline of public administration? It is similar to the pillars of public administration. In other words, what are some of the pillars or the guidelines of the system, of the rules and regulations over a certain jurisdiction that help in the execution of a public policy? I repeat, what are some of the pillars or the guidelines of the system of the rules and regulations over a certain jurisdiction that are involved in the execution of a public policy? That is what we are saying, the pillars or the principles of public administration. And because we said that this concept of administration, it comes from what we call the administrative theory, then it is similar to what you can easily be asked. What are some of the features or characteristics of an administrative system? Features or characteristics of an administrative system. I hope somebody is seeing it. Kwa sababu tumesema this concept of public administration, it is coming from this administrative system. What is administration? The management of public affairs. Administration, management of public affairs. And therefore, we are asking ourselves, what are some of the features? The features of this system that manages the public affairs, it is similar to what we call the principles or the pillars of public administration. This question was in the December 2024. December 2024, question 5, the examiner asked you, identify the features, the primary features of an administrative system. It was a repetition of August 2023. August 2023, still question 5. If you go through the past papers, the same question. Identified 5 principles. Actually, it is a 10 marks question. Examine the features or the characteristics of an administrative system. This system of rules and regulations that is managing public affairs. That is what we mean by administration. A system of rules and regulations that is managing public affairs, administration. What is public administration? Public administration, it is a system of rules and regulations over a certain jurisdiction that deals with the execution of a public policy. What is a public policy? It is the action that the government takes to solve the issues affecting the citizens. And that is why we are saying, if you're asked, what are the principles of public administration? What are the pillars of public administration? What are the features or characteristics of a primary administrative system? Then somebody must have the same answer. 1, efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency and effectiveness. When you see the word efficiency and effectiveness, this system must ensure that public resources are utilized optimally. System ensures optimum utilization of public resources. I hope tunaelewana. Mtu anaelewa kwa nini tunasema hivyo? Kwa sababu wakati wote utakuwa unatumia jina efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency means you're trying to lower the cost. Effectiveness means you are achieving the objective. So an administrative system must ensure there is efficiency, lowering the cost, and achievement of the objective. That is why we are saying through that there is optimum utilization of public resources. That's how. The other one, customer focused. Customer focused. That the administrative system, this system of rules and regulations that deal with the management of public affairs, it must be customer focused, meaning it ensures services to the people they serve. ensure services to the people serve. Ensure services to the people they serve. Because we are dealing with the members of the public. That one, we can also talk of transparency. There must be an aspect of transparency. It refers to the openness. Refers to the openness of the information or structures, or the structures dealing with management of public affairs, dealing with management of public affairs, dealing with management of public affairs. Sawa. So one of the primary features of an administrative is there transparency. Is there free flow of information? Is there openness? What have you been doing? So anytime you see the word transparency, then even if you're in an exam, give us accountability. There must be an aspect of accountability. Accountability is also a characteristics. Accountability. What is the meaning of accountability? It refers to being held liable. So persons serving in the administrative system should be held liable for the actions they commit while conducting their duties. Held liable for the actions persons commit while conducting their duties. So there must be some accountability. So one of the pillars of public administration, the one that we are using now, accountability. We want you to be accountable. You did something. Why did you do that? Accountability. Another one, you can say equity or social equity. Social equity. So what is the meaning of social equity? Treating all persons equally and fairly. The treatment of all persons equally and fairly. There must be treatment of all persons equally and fairly. In other words, there should be no discrimination. So in a person, you use the word non-discrimination. That one of the primary features of administrative system is that there must be non-discrimination. True. Because it is promoting some aspects of equity. Sawa? Another one? You can also tell us the concept of public participation. You are dealing with matters concerning public. So let us, the citizen, be involved. Citizens should be involved in the management of public affairs. The citizens are involved in making decisions, on matters affecting them, Okay. Sawa. Another one, another feature that we can commonly say it is a feature, it is a pillar, it is a principle of public administration. Consistency. 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 That these administrative systems and the public administration, they strive to improve services to the people. They strive to improve services to the people. They strive to improve services to the people. So that is what the December 2024 wanted, and you could get your 10 marks. Strive to improve the services to the people. You can also talk of economy. Yeah. You can add another principle, economy. Cost must be minimized on matters concerning public administration. Cost must be minimized. Okay. Cost must be minimized. That's all. So those are some of the, what we call, the features of an administrative system. And that person who is struggling, we have convinced them today. Administrative system of rules and regulations dealing with management of public affairs. And then the next thing we have asked ourselves, what is the meaning of public administration? System of rules and regulations that are dealing with the execution of a public policy. So in other words, they are talking of the same things. And therefore, the pillars, the principles, has the question on the pillars and principles been tested? Like what outlined the pillars of public administration, 5 marks is these ones. So that is what the examiner wanted that question. Now, the other thing that the last bit before we go, before we meet in our next class, I want us to talk of a question. Identify the challenges facing public administration. Identify the challenges facing public administration. That was also a question in the December 2024. Now it was asked, how do we solve those challenges? But let us start with identify. If today somebody asks you, identify challenges facing public administration, what will you tell them? Question, identify challenges facing public administration. So we come to the end, we need to know, identify challenges facing public administration. How else will the examiner ask you this question? Summarize the salient features of development administration. Actually, features public administration in developing countries. Those two questions, they're asking the same thing. The first one, I think it is direct. Challenges. Or what are some of the, recently, the examiner has introduced this one, handles facing public administration. What are some of the issues affecting public administration? Okay. The other thing, the salient features of public administration in developing countries. You're just being asked, what are some of the unique features? We commonly see them as challenges. What are some of the unique features in developing countries? Okay, 1, bureaucracy, high levels of bureaucracy. Is it true? Yes, everyone must say yes. So it is a salient feature of public administration in developing countries. Na levels nyingi za authority. That is true. Is it a challenge? Yes, it is a challenge. 2, high levels of corruption. High levels of corruption. Okay. 3, political interference. Is that a challenge in public administration? Yes, it is a challenge in public administration. There's a lot of political interference with the public administration. Is that also a feature in public administration? Yes. Is that also a feature in public administration? Yes. Another one, we can also talk of lack of effective citizens engagement. Lack of, actually, let us use not that, inadequate citizens engagement. We said no. We said no. We said no to the finance bill, but what happened? It went ahead. Inadequate citizens engagement. When we say this, they say the other one. So inadequate. Is that a salient feature in public administration? What is the meaning of salient? Unique. What are some of the unique features of public administration in developing countries? The word developing countries can be used, or that word countries. That is a lot of discrimination. They call us that word countries. So you will see the salient features. The other one, the challenges. Another one, you can say, there is a lot of poor corporate governance practices. Poor corporate governance practices. Those of us who are taking corporate governance and policy, we discuss the principles of corporate governance. For example, one of the corporate governance that we can easily say there's lack of it is corporate compliance. Sometimes you find the persons in the public administration, they violate the laws and regulations. They fail to follow the laws and regulations. The other one, we say that one of the principles of corporate governance is mix of skills and competence. That if you want to appoint any person in a board, if you want to appoint any person in a board of a certain parastatal, ensure that that person has the requisite skills and competence. But what happens? There are some friends that will go there. So there's a lot of poor corporate governance practices in public administration. Is that a challenge? Yes. Is that one of the unique features in that countries? Yes. So that is why we are saying those two questions, they're having the same answers. The other one, you can also tell us misappropriation of funds, poor personnel training, etc. The poor personnel training, etc. Sawa. The poor personnel training, etc. So those are some of the challenges. I want to give the question that I want us to start with in our next class. Outline the reforms implemented in public administration. You have this identified here. Examine the reforms implemented in public administration to improve service delivery. So the question that was in the December 2024 was, what are some of the challenges while implementing the reforms in public administration? That is what was tested. But let us start with the common one. What are the reforms? This question will be asked. Highlight the reasons for implementing public administration reforms. Those two questions asking the same concept. Try to answer them so that when we meet in our next class, we can discuss them. We can answer those questions, and then we can go to the other subtopics as we near to end that first topic, and then we can go to questions from the previous past papers.